Stay here.
Whoa. There's a trash can there, guys. I'm just saying now. Alright, it looks like about most of you are done, so let's go ahead and we'll start moving on. You can close your Chromebooks for right now, we're not going to need them. Let's go ahead and get those put away. We'll catch you up later, okay? We'll catch you up with the later, okay? Alright, so from your reading, what's something interesting that you guys read in that lesson? Anything?
The hieroglyphics translation.
The hieroglyphics translations, that's pretty cool. Amos?
That when they made paper, they would take papyrus, just smash it down, make sure.
Yeah. Can you imagine having that job day after day?
That'd be hard. Like what, they would have to like hammer it down,
Mhm.
sheet by sheet by sheet.
Yeah, that's probably a lot.
2 sheets a day.
2 sheets a day? Yeah, who else had a hard job in that time? Maybe some of the temple workers?
Priests.
Like the priests, you think they had a hard job?
And I mean, kinda. They didn't really have to do any work.
Yeah, well they would have had to like take messages from the gods and present those to the people and translate that and what it did you,
Also, like, if they did something bad,
Or
like,
they were
people
just
did bad,
schizophrenic.
There's lots of pressure on their job.
yeah, that's a lot of pressure on the jobs. Especially like if you were a priest or like some sort of government official, you probably would have faced a lot of scrutiny from like the pharaoh and from the people themselves. What about like the temples? What did we learn about those?
That they were directed by the architect and they were paid very well.
Yep, and they would get locked in the temples, right? Like the painters and everything till they were done. They wouldn't let them out of like the tombs or anything like that until the work was finished.
Like, what's that guy's name? Like Michelangelo?
Oh, from
And he would like paint on the ceiling and stuff.
yeah, but he got to go home at like 5 o'clock or the end of the day. These guys were locked in there together for, I would imagine, probably a few months. That'd be a long time. You had something else you were gonna add or say too, right? Before I.
I was just gonna say, I thought it was weird that people didn't think that a woman should rule, and so she'd like put on a fake beard and call herself king.
Yeah, and that's, you see that a lot in history. Why do you think that she pretended to be a man though? Like just to.
So that people wouldn't love her as much, I guess.
Yeah, and then I guess I don't know. They go and I wonder who she married. That'd be probably interesting to find out more about. Cause what was that ruler's name? I can't remember.
It was like, it started with the T.
Yeah, I can't remember either. Yeah, that'd be interesting to learn about. Alright, so I did have like a little bit more in-depth presentation on the Tale of Sinu. You guys read like just a little quick passage about that in the Book of the Dead that I was going to go into more with you. So let me go ahead and get this up here. Alright, so the interesting thing about like the hieroglyphics that we were learning about is besides writing on papyrus, they also would just use slabs. So this is actually written on like a piece of stone that somebody took the time to sit there and carve out each individual character and write this story out. Yeah.
Yeah, no thank you.
So it probably took a long time. It was published during the Middle Kingdom, which we can see was about 2000 to 1700 BCE. So it's more like their creative period, I guess. They worked on their culture a lot. It's believed to be the oldest known work of fiction. So that means like it was possibly the first story that was written that wasn't true. That wasn't based on a king, wasn't based
Can I
on.
read it?
We're gonna play a video that reads some of it to you. So It's actually a pretty big piece of important piece of work, because that shows how the Egyptians were starting to create like their own culture, their own literature, and this is where like possibly our first like work of fiction stems from. So this has a lot of influence even on like us today, because without like this tale, we wouldn't have, you know, like the Hunger Games series or any other series that you guys are probably reading at this time.
I mean, I watched the movies. It's not reading it though.
Yeah, the books are pretty good though. Alright, and the author's name is unknown. I would remember that unknown word for maybe later in a quiz. But they are not sure who wrote it. They were able to find this in like an archaeological dig, but they are not sure where it really came from, besides that it probably came from the Middle Kingdom. So just some, yep, that happens a lot when things have been like buried in the ground for a while. Just some quick vocabulary. Middle Egypt is an area of transformation related to Egyptian culture practices, like their social class, religious practice, and afterlife beliefs, and interactions with neighboring communities. So like we learned a little bit yesterday how the lower and upper Egypt were able to come together. This would have been like a time where that same sort of change was happening, of different beliefs were coming together and different practices and all that good stuff. Pharaoh, we already learned about that. That is the rulers of Egypt, as well as like with papyrus. You guys read about that today, where they were able to make paper out of those reeds using a very long process of smashing them down. And then lastly, hieroglyphics, that is their writing system that they used at the time. And instead of using letters, they used pictures and to represent the sounds and the words. All right, so this is a video. It's from the British Museum, so some of their talk is a little stuffy, it might seem a little boring, but there is a woman who will read part of the poetry to us, and he explains some of the importance of the Tale of Sinu to us. We'll watch about like 5 minutes of it. It kind of goes on for a minute, and then we'll talk about it afterwards. Sorry. I know.
Mr. Gamble, I'm gonna move on a rancher's memo.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna paint my
What
room.
started off as the worst job I'd ever been asked to do ended up as something really, really interesting. I would give water to the thirsty, I returned the wanderer to the path and rescued the robbed. Every country against which I set out, I made my attack on it, and it was driven from its grasslands and wells. I plundered its herds and carried off its inhabitants and took away their food. I killed the people in it with my strong arm, with my bow, with my campaigns and with my excellent plans.
The Tale of Sinuhe is perhaps the best known work to survive from ancient Egypt. It's an absolute masterpiece, composed by an anonymous author around 1850 BC. The poem is an exciting adventure story on one level. It tells how an official panics and leaves Egypt, lives most of his life abroad in the Levant, and then finally comes back to Egypt, thanks to the king's grace, to die and be buried in a royal pyramid. It charts a sequence of great personal crises, but we get a sense of what it is like to be human, to be worried, to be terrified, to have a sense that you are lost in the world.
Whatever God fated this flight, be gracious and bring me home. Surely you will let me see the place where my heart still stays. What matters more than my being buried in the land where I was born? This is my prayer for help.
It's wonderful to work with a performer like Barbara Ewing, who can bring a whole range of skill sets to the poem that academics usually lack in a very spectacular manner. And so she can voice to the ancient words, and I think allow people to hear the emotion and the passion. I think the poem in a way it's sort of a portrait of a human voice.
Okay, so we'll call it good there, but mostly just wanted you to hear like how she read that, and what some of the words and like the phrases were in that poem. The interesting thing about the poem that really stands out is it's about a man who was a royal official and went from Egypt to another state and started a whole new life because of the pressures he felt performing his duty. So he stayed away for about 20-30 years, started a whole new community, married another woman, had another family, and even like was running this new community when he suddenly decided in his old age that he missed Egypt. He didn't want to die without gaining their acceptance and their forgiveness for abandoning them. So he returns back to his position, and they welcome him and they forgive him, and he's even buried with honors. Part of what they talk about later in this video is how that couldn't be true. That's a little bit too happy of an ending. Do you guys think you could see that happening in real life?
Happy endings don't exist. Something happens. Somebody gets cancer. Somebody dies. Somebody gets murdered. Somebody gets robbed and dies.
Well, we have that bleak decision. What were you gonna say?
I don't think it ended like that, because I mean, he was their ruler and just left.
He was part of like the government, so to just leave your position, even if facing all that pressure and everything, it would be hard for, I think, for anybody to just come back and start that over again. One thing they do talk about is like how it also possibly couldn't be true because of some of the things they talk about. It's just wouldn't have been appropriate to say at that time. Wouldn't have been something that somebody in that sort of position would have talked about. Like you would have been breaking like their societal expectation. So more than likely, this is just a work of fiction. You can help me with the.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know why it. Yes, but this piece of poetry would have been performed orally, much like a play, or much like we saw in ancient Greece with like Homer and the Odyssey. Do you guys think that makes a difference of like hearing poetry read out loud in a performance? Yeah, why do you say so, Ben?
I don't know.
You just felt like you should say yes there?
Yeah. Like poetry is like, that kind of explains what happens and what they feel.
Yeah. Did you guys like how she was reading it to you?
No.
No?
I couldn't really,
It's too emotional.
I didn't
Too emotional?
It was almost too emotional that I couldn't really hear what she was saying.
Yeah. Do you think if she was like here reading it to you, be different versus seeing it like on a video? With,
Yeah.
yeah. Might be. That's true. A little too dramatic for you? I could see that. She is a really well-known actor and novelist in Britain, so I think there's kind of that expectation of her to put on this performance versus just reading it in a monotone voice. Hey girls, up here, thank you. So another question I had for you guys is like, what is the importance of poetry and other fictional work? Ben?
Like, just, even if they're fictional, they're just gonna give us like a feel of how someone else might be feeling, or something like that.
Right, like it's a look into how people lived at that time, so it's like a way to peer into like the culture and see possibly how ancient Egyptians were living, or at least what entertained them, so we can kind of learn more about their history too. Are you, any of you guys like pretty big readers in here? Yeah. So a lot of this, like you can think like the ancient Egyptians and like ancient Greeks for providing that type of work to us, because they were some of the first, and this one is believed to be about 4,000 years old. So if you can find like a translated copy, you're reading something that's like way older than I think just about any other written piece of work we may have. Yeah.
It's not older than the Queen.
The Queen is getting up there pretty well. All right, we already talked about those other ones. So what I want to do for our quizzes, I don't know what happened when I set it up, but we can't do it like as a class together. So we're gonna make it like a Jeopardy kind of style. We're gonna split you guys up into teams.
Jeopardy.
And then
You
we'll.
get money?
No, you just win. You know, kudos.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up.
I'll take 4 for 17.
Yeah, so we're gonna split you guys up into teams, and then as the question comes up, we're gonna, you know, whoever raises their hand first, that's who will get the chance to answer, and then we will go from there. We'll keep score, okay? So, Mr. Campbell, will you be my scorekeeper?
Sure, yeah.
Do we get a piece of candy for who wins?
Sorry. All right, so we're gonna do this. You get a thumbs up. You get a nice
I
big thumbs
thought
up.
about like
You did a smart thing.
So we'll split it by like rows. So
No, I'm
we'll
not.
do like
all of
these
it.
two rows,
Gray, you can go gray.
and then you two. Yeah, and then you two rows. Will one of you move over here so you
You
can go?
can't breathe. It says I'm offended.
Okay. So then
I'm offended.
these two rows are on team, and then you two rows are on team two. Okay.
I forgot my mask, so I thought, why not just ruin the office to make it.
Those masks are
All right.
Sit right here.
Because you can't breathe when you.
So remember, we're gonna go by like who raises their hand first. If you shout out the answer, I'm gonna ignore it. I want to make sure we get a hand in the air so we can try and keep it as fair as possible. Okay.
Jeopardy.
All right. So our first question, and I'll read them and then we'll go. Okay. All right. Sphinxes were. All right. Let's see. Ben. Sorry.
They were. Sorry, I can't read the yellow one.
Designed with either heads of animals or humans.
Oh, well, they're all of the above then.
There you go. Team 3. Sorry. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Okay. One of the world's first writing systems that used pictures instead of words. Okay. And I saw Amos first.
Hieroglyphics.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Whoa!
The Egyptians created the first 365-day calendar. Okay. Ben again. Or no, sorry, you're not Ben. Ben's next to you. Yes. True.
You didn't raise your hand before I came for the question.
Okay. All right. The Tale of Sini was published during. All right, Ben over here.
Was it the middle?
Yep.
I said it first. I can't remember the chat.
The Tale of Sinu is thought to be the oldest work of fiction. True or false? All right, Amos over here.
true.
Okay.
Dang
It's wrong.
Oh, we gotta power up. Good
What
job.
happens if someone gets it wrong?
Time for
Then we'll go on to like the next group. So.
Well, I don't know.
Okay. This king's tomb taught us a lot about Egyptian burial practices and beliefs. Yes.
I can't even read the question.
Yeah.
King Tut.
Good job.
I can't even read the answer.
Do you need to move closer?
No, I can read, I can see this fine, but I read it and then there
Oh, it's just the same thing happens to me too. I take a minute sometimes. The Tale of Sinu is based on a real person. All right, Amos.
False.
Team 2's one.
Who's team 2?
Yep, you guys. Okay, well, activate art. Egyptian art included all but. Okay, let's see. Ben,
Jewelry? Maybe?
what? You want to phone a friend?
No, don't. He said jewelry.
Ben.
He chose jewelry.
Meredith, what do you think?
Jewelry.
Meredith, what do you think?
Pottery?
Good job.
What? He said jewelry.
You guys are killing them.
So that's how
Giving them a
science
chance.
works.
All right, the author of the Tale of Sinu is.
History.
Okay, right here.
Unknown.
Good job.
That's fine.
You did something.
I know I did something. Just now.
Just now.
I got a point, and then he got a point.
All right. What is papyrus? Yes, Ben.
It's basically like paper like material.
Okay, perfect. Not the fruit.
Team 3. Wait, what team are we?
Team 4.
Team 4.
Okay.
Yay, we
All right. So that's the end of it. Team 2.
I got a point.
But you guys all did really well at that. Like honestly, thank you.
Wow, I know. Like, we're so
No, you guys did very well.
Third place.
so many points.
Better than last.
All right.
No,
So
bro. It's like so many.
Do not get the
okay. Sorry. Can we focus back in a little bit, guys? Thank you.
Do not get
So that's what I had for you guys. I just wanted to say thank you. You guys did really well at that quiz too. Most of you were raising your hands and hopefully had the answers too, I think. And thank you for paying attention and for doing that little lesson for me. I think we're gonna do like a TED Ed video on the Book of the Dead. So you guys can watch that for the last little bit of class, alright? Okay, thanks.